Outcast City. Welcome home.
Destiny. Here's a game you guys can talk. Or
It's almost like we're on a show about it.
I've stamped on this game, spat at this game, thrown it on the ground, and buried it 6 feet under. And now I'm done. Finished. As I've always said, Destiny is a disgrace to gaming, and this right here is my eulogy to Destiny. For the little time I had with you, I can personally tell you, you absolutely disgust me in every way, shape, and form.
You're the only one who makes me crumble. When I'm standing tall, you make me stumble.
And that's how it happened. And while some may say that this was just a series of unfortunate events, I think that it may have just been my destiny.
Keep me humble. Yeah. Oh. Just another case that makes me fall.
Do not reemerge. You have the time.
And you thought so.
I tried, sir. It didn't work. This will is too strong. Oh, please forgive me, sir. I'll fix this up.
No matter, he cannot stop us. I will finish what he began.
That's pretty cringeworthy, man. So it's been it's been pretty much a decade-long journey, and there's been highs and lows and everything in between. From the early days of Destiny 1 releasing on console to the recently released final expansion, the Final Shape, the Destiny franchise has evolved in ways that I think if you had asked a Destiny player back in 2014, none of them could have imagined where we all ended up now. And I think there is such a unique relationship between this franchise and myself with my own personal journey with this game, especially if you've been following me for over a decade. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about growing as a person, and also discussing a little bit about what possibly lies ahead for Bungie and the Destiny universe. So if we go back in time to around 2014, this is when Destiny 1 first launched, and I'm sure as many of you know, there was a lot of excitement for this game, and when it finally launched, there was definitely a lot of disappointment, to say the least. There was this promise of this grand, epic space opera that ultimately came out with the criticism of a lack of content, very repetitive gameplay, and obtuse storytelling, to say the least. Of course, I was one of the people who was pretty critical of the game before it even came out. I listed many problems that I had with it, from its alpha to its beta release on consoles, and ultimately when it released in 2014, you could say I was jubilant about the fact that this game had effectively failed at reaching the potential that it could have had at launch. Of course, I think a lot of gamers, especially now into the future, always felt that Destiny felt like this unfulfilled promise, that it always had this potential to be potentially one of the most memorable franchises in all of gaming. I think this kind of reflects on Bungie's pedigree of Halo. I think a lot of people were hoping it would become the next generation Halo, which in some ways I think they succeeded, but in a lot of ways I think they made something completely different. And it's not far-fetched to say that Destiny in fact did change the industry forever, for better or for worse. Now back then, of course, my frustrations and criticisms were very palpable. As a matter of fact, I would say a lot of them even still persist to today, while other criticisms I had were kind of founded in a little bit of ignorance and also a little bit of hating. I won't even deny it that back then I was probably one of, if not the biggest hater of Destiny. I'm talking Kendrick Lamar level of like, I hate the way that this game plays, I hate the way it moves, I hate the way the guns, I hate the loot, I hate it. Like I was that level of truly hating it, and there was truth to it, and I feel like even to today, there are people who probably still maintain that level of resentment towards Destiny that I did over a decade ago. Now, the biggest thing everybody asks you when you're talking about a video game is, but did you have fun? Did you enjoy the game? Because that's all that matters. And to be honest with you guys, nope! You thought I was gonna say yes.
This game is boring as hell. This game is boring, repetitive, manipulative, and worst of all, tricky.
And what's even funnier is looking back, I don't even know if I wanted Destiny to be more than what it was. It seemed that like Bungie was struggling to find pretty much exactly what they wanted to achieve, especially when more information came out about how the studio had to reboot the entire franchise late into its development, and this ultimately caused a lot of the issues that a lot of people saw with Destiny until The Taken King dropped. And of course, there I was, ready to dance and mock and make fun of those people who had faith in Destiny, or at least tried to enjoy it for what it was and not what it could have been. Then, as time went on with the release of Destiny 2, Bungie was mostly trying to get a second swing at things, and I'd say they kind of missed. I went into Destiny 2 actually open to playing it off rip because it was on PC, and on top of that, I think a lot of people felt that Bungie had learned a lot from its mistakes from Destiny 1 and they wouldn't repeat them, but it seemed like Bungie did not learn their lesson. Instead, they made even more mistakes than I feel like they did with the first game, and kind of just lost track of what made Destiny 1 even enjoyable for those hardcore fans. It would take years of post-launch updates and expansions. I think the biggest notable one that actually got me engaged into Destiny was Forsaken. That was the one that I feel like, for me personally, finally made Destiny 2 for the first time feel like a decent game. I wouldn't even say a great game, but an actual decent game. The campaign was really compelling and the content was really deep, and the cool things that they added in that year of Forsaken was really cool. But after that, it felt like Bungie kind of had this sort of 2 steps forward, then 3 steps back type of attitude after that. It seemed like after they dropped a really good expansion, the one that followed it ended up being a dud. Think of Forsaken to Shadowkeep, then from Shadowkeep to The Witch Queen, which I think was phenomenal, and then going from The Witch Queen to Lightfall, which is like, what happened, Bungie? How are we forgetting what makes your campaigns really good? These things perplexed a lot of gamers for the longest time, and of course, with all these things adding up, and Sony buying out Bungie, and the rumors that Bungie was effectively running out of money, everything rode on the final shape being a success. So Bungie had to lock in, and boy, did they hit it out of the park. Now, I feel like throughout the entire life cycle of Destiny 2, I would never say that Destiny 2 has been perfect, or relatively a great game. It always has had its own set of challenges, especially when it comes to monetization and content delivery. I think that these have always been the biggest criticisms thrown at Destiny 2, and I think part of it has to do with the type of game that it initially was portrayed as, and as the industry has changed with live service games and its labeling of itself as an MMO, I think that these things have caused a lot of confusion and frustration for not only returning players to have to constantly hand them money every single year for new stuff, but also it makes it very difficult for new players to hop in.
Bro! No! I'm free to play, man. Bro! How many pop-ups? Dude, I get it! Holy shit, I haven't played in a while, I know!
Even when Destiny 2 tried to go quote-unquote free to play, and I say that very lightly, the game is still very hard to access as a player who hasn't maybe played Destiny ever, or hasn't played it since D1, or hasn't played it since the launch of D2. It becomes a very difficult game to engage new potential guardians to want to invest their time and effort into unless they have other friends who are already doing it. I'd say despite these hurdles and a lot of ups and downs with the games, Bungie managed to still keep its community engaged and invested. That even at its lowest of lows, when there was all the doom posting and that Destiny 2 would be dead and that no one would ever go back to playing this game, it somehow still was able to succeed in the end. This game truly became one of the first living and breathing universes that many live service games promise and ultimately fail at. It is in that pantheon of the very unique games that so many other games try to emulate but fail of understanding some of the core tenets of why Destiny 2 and why Destiny as a franchise has succeeded throughout not only 1, not 2, but now 3 console generations. And as the story goes, as Destiny evolved, so did I. And as I said, being a person who initially held a lot of resentment for this franchise, over time I began to soften not only on Destiny, but a lot of the bigger picture when it comes to gaming. The game was much like life. It's a game about growth and perseverance. I started to a long time ago let go of a lot of my frustrations when it comes to the gaming industry and games, especially interacting with the humans behind these game projects, and also my own personal journey and also trying to develop a game myself. It gave me perspective. It truly humbled me. That experience is really remarkable, especially when you compare it to the backdrop of the final shape. Something that allows you to appreciate its beauty, even in its imperfections. And much like this personal growth, it seems to be intertwined with a lot of the conclusion of this massive saga that Bungie has been building for the past decade regarding the light and the dark. And it's demonstrated masterfully, I'd actually say, in this DLC with a lot of the core characters that have existed from the very beginning to ones that also have been reintroduced within the past game. People like Zavala, Ikora, and Cayde, who have shown absolutely remarkable development in their story arcs. I feel like this story actually resonated with me as a sci-fi fan, ending on such a high note. It's truly wonderful to be a part of, and this isn't the first time this has happened with me. Actually, a couple years ago, Final Fantasy XIV went through their finalization of their saga. It started to remind myself of not only how much I've grown, but how much older I've gotten, that now we're at this point in gaming where the old guard and much of like people like myself are now starting to hit into like twilight years of our existence on this platform or even in this community. And I can look back at it and think to myself of how the characters in this game, how they look back on their own legacies and what they've brought to the table and their own struggles throughout this. And I think my own struggles as a person to be better and how I've changed over where I could have possibly been. And a lot of you understand that is being constantly negative, especially on a platform that encourages it and seems to, even at a lot of times, reward that behavior that I think so many of us are just honestly just getting tired of. And it's become almost depressing for even those content creators, where I feel like a lot of them, when they self-reflect, they start to realize that they might have lost a piece of themselves that they might never get back. And I related a lot to like Zavala's struggle with leadership and being desperate enough to succeed no matter what you must sacrifice. Ikora struggles with hope and faith in something that is not tangible, and Cayde's not knowing if what you're doing is something that you're choosing to do on your own, and that you know that when you leave, you're leaving with an impression on someone, or that you know that what you've done in your life, it meant something. And these are things that I myself have thought about and have really reflected upon myself within the past couple of years as a content creator, as a person who initially was this very outspoken critic to now today somebody who just strives to enjoy what I like. It's truly something miraculous, and I'm thankful that I was able to have that growth, regardless of how others liked or disliked it, and coming to just accept others as they are, but hoping to leave a positive mark on the world. I feel like these are things that I've weighed as a lot more important, instead of trying to take shortcuts and rile people up in order to gain engagement. The final shape truly just brought everything full circle. It tied up a lot of loose ends, and it delivered in this amazing epic conclusion, and arguably one of the hardest, if not hardest, raids that Bungie has ever developed. And I think it's delivered on this epic saga, and it's honestly showcased, I think, Bungie's growth as a developer. To me, out of all the expansions that Bungie has dropped, this one really feels like a testament of the franchise's soul, its resilience throughout the generations, and the heart that it's had within its community. But also, it's important to understand that I've never really been a hardcore Destiny fan, even though I've played pretty much almost all the expansions for Destiny 2 and a little bit of Destiny 1. I would never say that I was a hardcore Destiny fan. I wasn't a person who tried to reach the max light level for my characters or the first person to beat the raid in the first week. I was never that type of player. I beat some raids, I did some dungeons here and there, and I played a good amount of Crucible with some friends, and a lot of the time just by myself. And I think even in that isolation, I still found random people through Discord, or also through, thank God, Bungie added a LFG mode inside of the game, but they allowed me to just meet different people from different walks of life who just enjoyed this franchise. And it made me throughout that time realize that it was okay for me to just let go of my hate and just appreciate the journey that I've been on, not only on YouTube, but also with this game. So now we stand at an impasse here. We stand at a point where Bungie and a lot of other franchises are closing out on these massive decade-long sagas. And I think the question that everybody asks is, where does Bungie go from here? How do they keep momentum going after such a monumental conclusion for such a massive franchise? And I think the answer lies in the past. Just like when they finished Halo 3 and Halo Reach, these same questions were being asked of them again. And even at that time, they understood that it was their ability to innovate, listen to their community, and build upon rich lore and gameplay mechanics that they've perfected over the years. So yeah, I would say that the final shape is fantastic, and it's finally turned Destiny 2 into a great game. The future of Destiny, I would say, looks pretty bright. Bungie has proven at this point that they can evolve and adapt, and I believe they're also not done with Destiny 2. With their latest release of Echoes, they still have new stories and challenges and experiences that they're ready to tell players within their established universe, and also some universes that have yet to be explored. Now, whether that's through brand new expansions, spin-offs, or Destiny 3, I still think that the legacy of Destiny will endure for a very long time. So honestly, this is less about me getting a hoorah, but more to you guys, to the Guardians, to the battles that you fought, and to the adventures that are yet to come. Eyes up, Guardian. In moments of reflection like this, I think a lot about a scene from the cartoon, The Boondocks, where Riley is having this conversation with his granddad, where he asks his granddad, he says, "What do you do when you can't do nothing? But there's nothing that you can do." And I think his granddad had the greatest advice I think he could ever give, which is, you do what you can.